The Grand Hall of the Galaxy Council was a place of immense power. High above, the stars shone like distant fireflies, their soft glow casting an otherworldly light over the chamber. The council chamber was a vast space, with smooth, silver walls that hummed with the energy of ancient technology. It was here that the fate of entire species was decided, where peace was brokered, and where the galaxy's future was shaped. Sarah Matthews stood alone at the center of the room, her posture rigid, every inch of her military training focused on the task at hand. She was the only human in a room filled with alien species far older and more powerful than Earth's fledgling civilization. Her chest tightened with nerves, but she kept her gaze steady, staring into the faces of the galaxy's most influential leaders. The Council had called her here, not to negotiate but to defend her people. They had summoned her to decide the fate of humanity. They were considering banning humans from the galaxy altogether, not for any crime they had committed but because of their potential, a potential that some, especially the older species, feared. Sarah's eyes flicked to the massive screens that lined the walls of the chamber, displaying the faces of the council members. Among them were the insectoid Vrax, whose chitinous body seemed as ancient as the stars themselves, and Talonor, a crystalline being whose sharp, glowing facets reflected the tension in the room. Each of them sat in their elevated thrones, looking down at her as if she were a child trying to convince them of something impossible. Commander Matthews, Salithar, the head of the council, said in his soft, ethereal voice. His form was wispy like smoke, but his eyes held centuries of wisdom. He studied Sarah carefully, as though deciding whether she was even worth his attention. We have been watching humanity for some time now. You have advanced quickly, yes, but your species is dangerous. You do not yet understand the power you wield. This is why the Council has decided to vote on banning your people from the galaxy. The word struck Sarah like a blow to the chest. Banning humanity. The very thought was unthinkable. Earth wasn't even a full member of the galactic community, but their potential, their rapid technological growth, had put them on the Council's radar. The first contact had been peaceful enough, but as time passed, the aliens had started to see humanity as a threat. Dangerous? Sarah repeated, her voice steady despite the surge of anger rising within her. How are we dangerous? We've only just begun to explore the stars. We've made allies, discovered new technologies. We've shared knowledge with those who wanted it. Vrax hissed, his multifaceted eyes narrowing in disdain. It is your unpredictability that makes you dangerous. You don't think like us. Your species thrives in chaos, and you fight with a kind of reckless spirit that no other species possesses. Your kind adapts too quickly. There is no telling what you could do once you fully develop your power. We cannot allow such instability. Sarah's fists clenched at her sides. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream that humanity wasn't the monster they feared. But what could she say to a council that had already made up its mind? A council that saw every new species as a potential threat. We are not reckless, Sarah said, her voice growing more forceful. We fight to survive. We fight to protect the things that matter to us, our families, our home. Humanity has made mistakes, yes, but we learn from them. We rise from them. We're not perfect, but we have a right to be here, just like every other species in this galaxy. A murmur rippled through the council. Some were nodding in agreement, others looked away, indifferent. But it wasn't enough. Sarah knew it wasn't enough. The council wasn't listening to her words. They had already made their decision. Salithar stood, his glowing form rippling with power. Commander Matthews, I admire your conviction, but it is not enough. The council has decided. Humanity is too unpredictable. Your species will be banned from further contact with the galaxy. The weight of those words hit Sarah like a hammer. Banned. From the galaxy. All the work, all the sacrifices humanity had made to prove they could be a part of this vast universe, it would all be wiped away in an instant. She felt her heart race, her chest tightening with a mixture of anger and helplessness. This was it. This was the moment when everything would change. And yet, she wasn't ready to give up. "There must be another way," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper but firm. "You're making a mistake. Humanity is a force for peace, not destruction." Solithar's eyes locked onto hers, and for a brief moment he seemed to study her, considering her words. Then he gestured to an assistant. "Show the council the video. Let's see if Commander Matthews' words hold any weight." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The video. She had no idea what this meant, but she could feel the tide shifting. This could either be her moment of victory or the final nail in humanity's coffin. The lights dimmed. The large screen flickered to life, and all eyes in the chamber turned to the display. "What is this?" Vrax hissed, clearly annoyed. "Let's see," Solithar said, his voice cold, as the video began to play. It was time to show them what humanity was truly capable of. The screen flickered to life, casting a cold glow over the chamber. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She hadn't known what the video was going to be, but she could feel it in her bones. This was the moment. It had to be. She only hoped that whatever was about to play could convince the council that humanity was worth giving a chance. At first, the video showed a peaceful image, human colonists on a faraway planet smiling, building, sharing. The kind of footage that Sarah thought would represent humanity well. But then, the image shifted. The smiles faded. The peaceful scene was replaced by something darker. A human colony was under attack. The camera zoomed in on a group of human soldiers in makeshift armor, fighting off an invasion of aggressive aliens. The enemy was vicious, their weapons far more advanced than the humans' simple rifles. The humans were outnumbered, their backs against the wall, but they fought with an intensity that was unmistakable. The footage showed a young soldier, no older than 20, leading his team through the chaos. He moved swiftly, rallying his comrades as they dodged fire and returned shots. It was brutal. There was no glorifying this battle. The humans were losing, but they weren't backing down. They adapted. They fought smart. In one harrowing moment, the young soldier found himself pinned down by enemy fire, his leg caught under a pile of rubble. But he didn't give in. Instead, he pulled out a grenade, rolled it toward the enemy's position, and then, with a burst of effort, he managed to crawl to safety. It was a desperate move, but it was one that paid off. The enemy fell back, retreating in fear of the explosives that had crippled their forces. The scene cut to another human soldier, this one an engineer. She was sitting on the ground, tears streaking her face, hands shaking as she worked furiously to repair a damaged communications device. Her team depended on her, and they couldn't afford to lose the connection with Earth. With a final, desperate push, she fixed the device, and the signal was restored just in time for reinforcements to arrive. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the screen showed the final moments of the battle. The humans had held their ground, despite everything stacked against them. Against overwhelming odds, they had won. The footage ended abruptly, leaving an air of tense silence in the room. The council members exchanged uncertain glances, their expressions unreadable. Sarah's chest tightened, unsure of what was going to happen next. She had seen this battle countless times, had witnessed it in real life, but now, seeing it through the eyes of these distant, alien beings, it felt different. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched on, unbearable and thick. Sarah wanted to break it, wanted to shout that humanity wasn't a threat, that the very spirit that made them fight back was what would make them allies, not enemies. But she didn't need to. The video had already done the work for her. Finally, Solithar, the council leader, stood. His wispy form shimmered with an unsettling grace, and his voice filled the room with a quiet, thoughtful resonance. "This footage," he began slowly, "shows something we did not expect. The humans did not simply fight to survive. They fought with strategy. They adapted. They made choices that no other species would have made in the same situation." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't dismissing them. That had to mean something. "The question remains," Solithar continued, his voice still calm but with a new undertone of respect. How does humanity handle itself when faced with a more organized threat, a galaxy-wide threat, one where your tactics may no longer work? Sarah stepped forward, her voice unwavering. We adapt again. That's what makes us different. When we face a challenge, we don't run. We learn, we adjust, and we fight back with everything we have. And when we make mistakes, we learn from them. We rise again. We never stop. There was a long pause. The council was silent, and Sarah could feel the weight of their gazes, each one searching for something more. The insectoid Vrax was the first to speak, his voice no longer dripping with contempt but with a note of uncertainty. I did not expect this, he said, his many eyes narrowing as if trying to process what he had just witnessed. The humans, they fought not with just strength but with heart, but that still does not guarantee peace. No, Sarah agreed, her voice steady but carrying a hint of sadness. But peace isn't the only thing we fight for. We fight for what's right. We fight for each other. That's what we do, and that's why you should not fear us. Another council member, Talonor, the crystalline being, spoke up. And what of your technology? You say you fight with heart, but what happens when your technology catches up with your potential? What happens when humanity is no longer just a species to be feared in battle, but one that can wield weapons capable of annihilation? Sarah took a deep breath. This was the real question, the one they'd all been dancing around. We will not be what you fear, she said firmly. Humanity has already learned the lessons of war. The only thing we seek is understanding. We are explorers, not conquerors. We seek knowledge, not dominance. There was a shift in the room then, a change in the air, a subtle but palpable feeling that the council members were beginning to understand. They weren't there yet, but the seed of doubt had been planted. And for the first time since she stepped into that chamber, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Solithar's eyes met hers, and there was something different in his gaze. You have given us something to consider, Commander Matthews. This video, your words, they have shown us a side of humanity we did not understand. We will deliberate. And with that, the room fell silent, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. The silence in the chamber was suffocating. Sarah could feel every pair of eyes upon her, studying her, analyzing every word she'd said. The video had done its part, but now came the hardest part, convincing them that humanity was more than just a collection of fighters. They were survivors. They were allies. They had a place in the galaxy. She stood at the center of the room, trying to steady her breath. The weight of the moment felt like a physical pressure pressing down on her chest. Humanity's future, her people's future, hung in the balance. A moment ago, they had been ready to ban Earth from the galaxy, to cast them aside as too dangerous. Now, the council was deliberating, picking apart every word, every action in that video. Solithar, the leader of the council, floated silently in the air. His form was an ethereal glow, his eyes unfathomable. He hadn't spoken since the video ended. Neither had any of the council members. For a brief moment, Sarah allowed herself to hope that her words had made an impact. But hope was fragile, and it could be shattered in an instant. I'm not sure what's worse, Vrax, the insectoid council member, finally hissed, breaking the silence. That humanity's abilities are even greater than we expected, or that they believe they can just adapt to every threat. His words stung, but Sarah didn't flinch. We're not pretending we can control everything, she replied, her voice steady, though her heart raced. We can't foresee every danger, but we learn, we survive, and we don't give up. Talonor, the crystalline being, tilted its head slightly, its sharp edges glowing in the dim light of the chamber. You claim to be survivors, but what happens when your survival comes at the cost of other species? Your kind doesn't just adapt. You conquer. The video we saw, it's not about survival, it's about outsmarting your enemies. Sarah's throat tightened. It wasn't the first time humanity had been accused of being conquerors. She could hear the underlying fear in Talonor's voice. It wasn't just about the battle footage. It was about everything that had come before, Earth's rise, their potential. They feared humanity would eventually use their intelligence, their adaptability, to dominate the galaxy. "We fight to protect what's ours," Sarah said quietly. "But that doesn't mean we want to rule over others. We want to share knowledge, not take control. The galaxy is vast, and there's enough room for all of us." She felt the eyes of the council members on her, some of them skeptical, others thoughtful. But it was Salithar who spoke next, his voice low, yet powerful. "Your words are compelling, Commander Matthews, but words are not enough to win the Council's trust. As you know, the Council is a collective, and the Council must be convinced by more than just promises of peace. We need more than your survival instincts. We need to know that humanity will not use its power for destruction." Sarah's heart sank, but she stood taller, her resolve hardening. "If you want proof, then look at our history. Humanity has made mistakes, yes. We've been at war with ourselves more times than I care to count. But we've also learned from those mistakes. We're not perfect, but we've built a world where cooperation and peace are possible. We know what it costs to fight, and we're ready to fight only when there's no other option." A murmur ran through the council, and Sarah could see a flicker of hesitation in their eyes. She knew that many of them were still scared, but the seed of doubt had been planted. She could feel it. "Perhaps it's not just about what humanity is capable of," Salithar said, his voice quiet now, but carrying the weight of centuries. "Perhaps it's about whether humanity can stand with the galaxy, whether your species will fight for its survival without tearing everything apart in the process." Sarah took a deep breath. She had been given a chance to speak, but now she had to prove it with her actions. "We will stand with the galaxy. We will do whatever it takes to protect the peace of the galaxy. We're not a threat, but if you force us into a corner, we'll fight back, and we'll never stop." The room was still. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions guarded, but Sarah knew that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. She had given them the truth about humanity's heart, its resilience, and its willingness to stand up for what was right. The decision was not yet made, but the council had seen a glimpse of humanity's spirit, and that was all Sarah needed. The rest would come in time. Salithar slowly floated down from his seat, his long, translucent limbs moving with grace. "You make an interesting case, Commander Matthews. The video you showed us, it has altered our perspective. But humanity's future in the galaxy will not be decided by mere words." Vrax hissed again, this time in frustration. "So we vote," he growled. "What does the council have to see before they make a final decision?" Salithar's gaze turned toward Vrax, then back to Sarah. "Yes, the council will vote, but before we do, we will give humanity a chance to prove itself." The weight of his words hit Sarah hard. The council had not dismissed her. Humanity wasn't banned, not yet. But the road ahead was uncertain. The vote would decide it all. As Sarah stood there, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, she realized one thing. This fight wasn't over. It had just begun. The tension in the council chamber was unbearable. The debate had lasted hours, but now the moment had come. Sarah Matthews stood alone, facing the assembly of galactic powers that had the final say in humanity's fate. The room was silent, save for the quiet hum of the chamber's ancient machinery. Each council member sat in their towering thrones, their alien features expressionless, their eyes focused on her. They had all watched the video. They had all heard her words, but would it be enough to save humanity? Salithar, the wispy leader of the council, had led the deliberations with calm precision. But now, as the final moment stretched on, his gaze hardened. Sarah's stomach tightened with every passing second. This vote would determine if Earth would remain in the galaxy or be cast aside, excluded from the wonders and dangers of the universe. Salithar's voice broke the silence. "We have deliberated long enough. It is time to vote." The room felt like it was closing in on Sarah. She could hear the faint murmurs of the council members, but she didn't turn to look. She couldn't afford to break her focus. Her heart raced, but she remained still. This was her moment. for humanity. I will ask for the vote, Salithar continued. Those in favor of banning humanity from the galaxy, raise your hand. Sarah's eyes flicked to the faces of the council members. Vrax, the insectoid, raised his hand immediately. His face was hard, his multiple eyes focused on her with contempt. He had never wavered, always insisting that humanity's unpredictability would bring chaos to the galaxy. Talonor, the crystalline being, hesitated for a moment, its glowing facets shimmering in the dim light. But eventually it raised its hand, the gesture slow and deliberate. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. 2 votes. It was a blow. She had expected it, but it still hurt. The video had made a strong case, but was it enough? Would there be enough support to turn the tide? Salithar's voice was calm but filled with authority as he continued. Those who believe humanity should remain, raise your hand. Sarah's pulse quickened. She couldn't breathe. Slowly, one by one, the remaining council members raised their hands. Talonor had been hesitant, but now it was clear. The vote was divided and it wasn't over yet. But then the last member, a small, shadowy being from a distant planet, raised their hand. It was the deciding vote. We have reached a decision, Salithar said softly, his voice echoing through the chamber. The room was still, every alien in the chamber now locked in silence. Sarah's eyes widened, her hands gripping the sides of her jacket. The final vote, the one that had changed everything, was in. Had humanity won, or was this the end? Salithar's gaze shifted to her, his voice quieter now, almost softer. By the narrowest of margins, humanity will not be banned. A wave of shock, then relief, crashed over Sarah. She let out the breath she had been holding and her knees nearly buckled. The room seemed to swirl around her. She had done it. Humanity had won. The council had chosen to give them a chance. We will not ban you, Commander Matthews, Salithar continued, his tone now firm, almost resigned. But your species must prove itself. There will be no second chances. Humanity's future in the galaxy will be determined by your actions, by the alliances you form, and by how you use your growing power. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. This wasn't over. It was a victory, yes, but a fragile one. Humanity had been given a chance to prove themselves. There was no turning back now. The Council's warning had been clear. Fail, and humanity would be cast aside, forever labeled a threat. Understood, Sarah said, her voice steady but her heart still pounding. She took a deep breath. We won't fail. Salithar nodded, his gaze lingering on her. I hope you don't. The galaxy will be watching. The peace of the galaxy depends on the choices humanity makes in the coming years. With that, the chamber began to stir. The council members were slowly rising from their seats, exchanging quiet words among themselves. The vote was done, but Sarah couldn't shake the sense that the hardest part was just beginning. She turned to leave, her mind racing. She had won a small battle, but there was so much more to do. She couldn't afford to rest on this victory. The galaxy, with its endless dangers and conflicts, awaited humanity's next steps. As Sarah walked out of the chamber, the weight of the decision settled in. Her heart was still racing, but now she had the clarity of purpose. Humanity had been given a chance to prove they belonged, but the road ahead would be difficult. The Council's eyes were on them, and if they didn't prove themselves, they would face the consequences. The galaxy had opened its doors just a crack, and now it was up to humanity to make sure they stayed open. Sarah Matthews couldn't sleep. The decision the Council had made still echoed in her mind, each moment replaying like a loop, each word from Salithar weighing heavier than the last. Humanity had been given a chance to prove itself. No ban, but no guarantee of peace either. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the small window of her quarters, the stars outside like distant, cold lights. The galaxy stretched endlessly before her, a vast unknown full of possibilities and dangers. The decision wasn't just about the Council's vote. It was about what would happen next, how humanity would show the galaxy it wasn't the threat they feared. A knock on the door snapped her from her thoughts. "Come in," Sarah called. The door slid open, and Emma Liu, her closest friend and one of the best soldiers Earth had to offer, stepped inside. Emma's expression was tired, but there was fire in her eyes, just like always. "Thought you'd still be awake," Emma said, leaning against the doorframe. "You okay?" Sarah managed a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, just thinking." Emma stepped further into the room and took a seat across from Sarah. "That decision today, don't let it weigh too heavily on you. You did everything you could." Sarah sighed. "It's not enough, it never is. We're still on the edge, Emma. One wrong move and it's over." "True," Emma said, her gaze softening. "But one right move and we prove them wrong. We show the galaxy who we really are." "I hope so," Sarah said, looking at her friend. "But the galaxy won't make it easy." Emma leaned forward, a determined glint in her eyes. "You've always said that humanity doesn't back down from a challenge. We don't take the easy way out. We find a way through, no matter the odds." Sarah nodded, her mind shifting gears. Emma was right. Humanity had never been about taking the easy path. They had fought through wars, survived calamities, and rebuilt when it seemed impossible. It wasn't about whether they were perfect, it was about resilience. And they had plenty of that. "All right," Sarah said, standing up and packing across the room. "Let's say we prove them wrong. Let's say we take this chance and run with it. What do we do next?" Emma's voice was steady, full of the confidence Sarah needed to hear. "We make allies. We show them that we can be trusted. And if we have to fight to protect that trust, we fight." Sarah stopped packing and turned to her friend. "We're not just fighting for ourselves, though. If we mess this up, we could risk everything. The entire galaxy could see us as a threat again. And if that happens—" "We won't let that happen," Emma interrupted, standing up and walking over to Sarah. "We don't fight alone, Sarah. We find allies. We make them believe in us." For a moment, Sarah felt the weight of it all. The pressure to prove humanity's worth, to make sure that this was more than just a temporary victory. They needed to be more than just survivors. They had to show the galaxy that their presence wouldn't bring destruction. "All right," Sarah said, the determination starting to rise in her chest. "Then let's start now. We're going to find our allies and we're going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for." Emma smiled, a rare, reassuring grin that made Sarah feel like maybe, just maybe, they could pull this off. "That's the spirit. But first we need a plan, and we need to move fast. The Council is watching us. The whole galaxy is." Sarah sat back down at the desk in her quarters and activated the console. A map of the galaxy appeared in front of her, vast and sprawling. Countless stars, planets, and systems blinked back at her. The challenge before them was bigger than she'd ever imagined. The galaxy wasn't just a collection of stars. It was a collection of civilizations, some ancient and others just as new as humanity. If humanity was to stand among them, they had to prove they could hold their own. "We start with the closest systems," Sarah said, running her fingers over the holographic map. "We need to make first contact, build relationships, and show the galaxy that we're more than capable of standing alongside them. But it has to be done carefully. We can't afford to make the same mistakes we've made before." Emma nodded. "Agreed. We need to be strategic, but we also need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more we risk being seen as weak." Sarah's mind was already working through the logistics. They'd need resources, allies, and the right information. She couldn't afford to let anyone see humanity as a threat again. One wrong step and it would all crumble. "The first step is the HFY Dominion," Sarah said, her finger pointing to a star system on the map. "They're a growing power in this sector and they value technology. If we can prove ourselves useful, it might be the opening we need." Emma grinned. "I'll get a team together. Let's go make humanity's mark." Sarah looked at her friend, the determination in her eyes matching Emma's. This was it. The chance to show the galaxy what humanity was capable of. They weren't just going to fight for their survival. They were going to fight for their place in this universe. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity wasn't backing down, and if the galaxy wasn't ready for them, they would make them ready. Sarah stood tall, her gaze fixed on the stars. This was just the beginning. The days after the Council's vote had been a whirlwind. Earth had been given a chance, but that chance wasn't a guarantee. Humanity had been given the responsibility of proving their worth to the galaxy. It was no longer just about surviving. It was about showing that they could stand as equals with the more powerful and ancient civilizations of the universe. Sarah Matthews, commander of the human fleet, sat at the head of the meeting table, her mind racing through every possibility. The mission she and her team had set out on was risky. The HFY Dominion, a growing and highly influential empire, was their first target. The Dominion was known for its advanced technology, and they valued strategic alliances. If humanity could prove themselves useful to the HFY, it would open doors across the galaxy. If they failed, it could be the end of Earth's place in the galactic community. Emma Liu, always the determined one, stood next to her, a map of the HFY star systems projected in front of them. "We've got one shot at this, Sarah," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We need to make a good impression and fast. We don't have time to waste." Sarah nodded, trying to suppress the knot of anxiety that had been building in her stomach since the Council's decision. The weight of humanity's future was pressing on her shoulders, but she couldn't show it. Not now. "We need to play this carefully," she said, her voice firm. "We approach them as equals, not beggars. We offer something of value, technology, resources, anything that can help them see we're an asset." Emma's eyes narrowed with focus. "We've got some advanced weapon tech, some medical breakthroughs, and our engineers have been working on some ship enhancements. We'll need to make sure they know we're capable, but not overstep." Sarah ran her fingers through her hair, trying to focus on the task at hand. She knew the stakes. The HFY Dominion was not a group that would take kindly to humans who acted too eager, or worse, too weak. The humans had to prove they could be allies, not just another species to be controlled or feared. "All right," Sarah said, standing up, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling inside her. "We're not just here to survive. We're here to make sure humanity is seen as an asset to the galaxy. We can't afford to fail, so let's make it happen. We leave in 1 hour." The journey to the HFY system was tense. Sarah sat in her quarters, watching the stars streak by as they neared their destination. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. Every part of her being screamed for reassurance, but she knew better than to let it show. The crew needed a leader, someone who believed in the mission, no matter how difficult the path ahead. When they arrived, the HFY fleet loomed in the distance, a vast armada of sleek, intimidating ships. The size and scale of the HFY fleet made Earth's small fleet of ships look like toys in comparison, but Sarah refused to back down. She couldn't. Humanity's future was on the line. "Commander Matthews," Emma said, her voice crackling through the communication link, "the HFY are ready for us. They're awaiting our transmission." Sarah took a deep breath and nodded. "Prepare for first contact. Keep it calm, professional. We're here to show them we're capable of working with them, not to beg for their approval." Moments later, the screen in front of Sarah flickered to life. A tall, armored HFY representative appeared. His appearance was imposing, clad in dark armor that covered his entire form, his glowing eyes burning with the intensity of a creature that had seen countless battles. The silence stretched between them for what felt like an eternity. "We have received your transmission," the HFY said, his voice deep and resonant, each word carrying the weight of authority. "Explain why we should trust you, human." Sarah stood tall, her expression unwavering. "We're here to offer you a partnership," she said, keeping her tone neutral. "We're not asking for favors. We're asking for the opportunity to prove that humanity can be valuable in the galactic community." The HFY's glowing eyes narrowed slightly, as though sizing her up. "You claim to be valuable, Yet your species is but a child in the vastness of this galaxy. What can you offer that is worth our time?" Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her composure. "We offer technology that can help improve the efficiency of your ships, medical advancements that could enhance your soldiers' performance, and a shared knowledge base that we believe could benefit your species in the long run. We may be new to the stars, but we've learned to adapt quickly. We're capable of far more than you may think." The CHR's eyes flickered, and for a moment, Sarah thought she saw a glimmer of interest. But it was hard to tell. Their expressions were unreadable, and she knew the CHR were masters of playing their cards close to the chest. "We will consider your offer," the CHR said, his voice cold and calculating. "But we will not be rushed. A decision will come when it is ready." Sarah exhaled slowly, trying not to let the pressure show. "Understood." With that, the screen went dark. The communication ended. The weight of the silence that followed was suffocating. "We've made our offer," Sarah said quietly, turning to Emma. "Now we wait." The next few days were filled with tense anticipation. Sarah knew that the CHR could be slow to make decisions, especially when they were considering something as significant as a potential alliance with humanity. Every hour that passed without word felt like a small eternity. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the message came. The CHR representative's face appeared on the screen once more. "Your offer has been accepted. Humanity will be granted a place in the galaxy, but remember this: your actions from this point forward will define your future." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with relief. "We won't let you down." As the communication ended, Sarah looked out at the stars again. For the first time since the Council's vote, she allowed herself to breathe. Humanity had made its mark. They had been given a chance, and now they had to prove they were worth it. The journey was just beginning. The days after their victory in securing the CHR Dominion as an ally felt like a dream to Sarah Matthews. For so long, humanity had fought alone, isolated in the vast galaxy. Now, they were no longer just another species trying to survive. They had earned a place among the stars. But even with the CHR's acceptance, Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long, and there were still many battles to fight, some against enemies, and others against the deep-set fear and distrust the galaxy still held toward humanity. Sarah stood at the observation window of the human fleet's flagship, watching the stars stretch by as they made their way back toward Earth. The planet she had left behind felt so far away now, as if the human race had outgrown it. Yet, no matter how far they traveled, Earth would always be their home. "Earth, waiting for us," Emma said, stepping up beside her. "We've got the CHR on our side. Now let's see if we can make the rest of the galaxy believe in us." Sarah nodded, her eyes still fixed on the distant stars. "We've got to show them we're more than what they think we are. The CHR gave us a chance, but it's still fragile. One wrong move and it could all fall apart." Emma crossed her arms, her face serious. "We won't let that happen. We've come too far." A small smile tugged at the corner of Sarah's mouth. "I hope you're right." The communication channel buzzed with activity as Sarah stood in the fleet's war room. News of their success with the CHR Dominion had spread quickly, and the atmosphere in the room was a mix of relief and anticipation. Officers and strategists from Earth's fleet were gathered around a large hollow table, preparing to discuss the next steps. Their first true alliance had been made, but it wasn't the end of the journey. It was only the start. "Commander Matthews," said Lieutenant Collins, a young officer with an eager expression, "we've been getting signals from several other systems. Some of them are curious, others cautious. The CHR have sent word that we're now officially invited to speak with other factions. They want to see if we're as capable as we've claimed." Sarah turned to face him, her mind already racing through the possibilities. She knew what this meant. More opportunities to make allies, but also more chances to make enemies. The pressure was building. Humanity couldn't afford to disappoint. "We need to make sure we send the right message," Sarah said, her voice firm. "We're not here to take over. We're here to be part of something bigger. We'll approach them with respect, show them that we're valuable, not just in terms of military strength, but as people who can contribute to the galaxy's future." The officers around the table nodded in agreement. Sarah could see the determination in their eyes, the same determination that had carried humanity through impossible odds. "We've earned a chance," Sarah said, stepping forward, "but it's up to us to keep it." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, discussions, and tense negotiations. The CHR were still with them, their endorsement opening doors, but each step forward felt like a balancing act. Some species were more open to the idea of working with humanity, while others watched with suspicion, unsure if the humans were truly as harmless as they appeared. One day, while they were in the middle of a diplomatic mission to a neighboring system, Sarah received an urgent message from Earth. The planet had been attacked by a rogue faction of humans who had sided with a rival alien race. The news hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. After everything they had done, after earning the galaxy's trust, it seemed as though humanity still had its internal struggles to face. "Commander Matthews," Emma said, her voice tense as she stood by Sarah's side, "we need to act fast. We can't let this go unpunished. The rogue faction could ruin everything we've worked for." Sarah's heart raced as she thought of Earth, her family, her friends, her home. She knew what needed to be done, but the risk was high. A conflict between factions on Earth would send the wrong message to the galaxy. It could fracture everything they had built. Still, she couldn't just let this go. "We can't let this destroy what we've worked for," Sarah said, her voice steady but heavy with the weight of the decision. "We'll deal with the rogue faction, but we do it with restraint. We don't want to give the galaxy a reason to doubt us. This is about showing them we're strong, but we're not a threat." Emma nodded, her face resolute. "We'll handle it, Sarah, but we'll need all hands on deck." The fleet was ready. Humanity was ready. The battle with the rogue faction was swift but brutal. Sarah's fleet moved in with precision, overwhelming the traders before they could do any more damage. As the final skirmish ended, Sarah stood in front of her crew, her heart heavy but proud. They had fought not just for survival, but for their place in the galaxy, and they had proven they could handle the weight of responsibility that came with it. The rogue faction was defeated, but the message they had sent was clear. Humanity would fight for its future, no matter the cost. It wasn't just about technology or alliances. It was about humanity's strength, its heart. Back on Earth, as the dust settled, the people saw the truth. Humanity wasn't a species to be underestimated. They had made their mark and they weren't going anywhere. As Sarah stood in front of the stars once more, she felt the weight of everything that had happened. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, but that place would need to be fought for every day. And as long as she was in charge, she would make sure they never stopped fighting. For peace, for unity, for humanity. After securing the CHR Dominion as an ally, Commander Sarah Matthews knew the true challenge was just beginning. Humanity had earned a chance, but that was only the first step. They had to prove they could stand as equals with the galaxy's powerful civilizations. The CHR's acceptance was a victory, but there were still many species to convince and many dangers ahead. Sarah and her team quickly learned that the galaxy was full of skepticism. Some species were open to working with humanity, but others were distrustful. Still, Sarah remained determined. Humanity wasn't here to conquer. They were here to contribute, to show they had something valuable to offer beyond military might. Just as things seemed to stabilize, a rogue faction of humans, aligned with a hostile alien group, attacked Earth. The mission to stop them was swift but delicate. Humanity's strength was on display again, but this time, it was about proving restraint and unity. With the rogue faction dealt with, Sarah knew the stakes had only risen. Humanity had shown its power, but it would always be a fight to maintain that place in the galaxy. The real,